There is a curiosity within tennis players that rarely gets spoken aloud, but lives quietly in almost every racket bag in the world. It shows up when we scroll endlessly through racket reviews. It shows up when we hold someone else's racket and wonder if it feels better than ours. It shows up when we convince ourselves a new frame will unlock a new version of our game. And it shows up when we obsess over brands. Wilson, Head, Babolat, Yonex. As if the racket we choose says something about who we are. Today's episode isn't about technology. It's about psychology. It's about why racket brands matter to us on an emotional level. Why we attach identity to them. Why we feel proud using some brands and insecure using others. Why we defend our choices as if they represent our personality. And why this obsession reveals more about our ego than our tennis. Let's start gently, with truth. Every tennis player has a subtle, unspoken relationship with their racket. Even beginners feel it. They feel that a racket is more than a tool. It becomes part of their self-image, especially when they step on the court in front of other people. This is where brand obsession begins. Not with specs or technology, but with identity. If you've ever held a racket and felt a surge of confidence, not because of how it played, but because of the logo on the strings, you already know what I'm talking about. If you've ever switched rackets because you saw a pro using one, if you've ever felt embarrassed using an older model, if you've ever felt more like a player because of the brand you chose, then welcome. This episode is about you. Let's explore why racket brands feel like identity. Humans naturally attach meaning to symbols. A brand isn't just a name, it's a story. Federer's Wilson Pro Staff isn't just a racket. It's elegance, legacy, purity. Djokovic's Head Speed isn't a racket. It's resilience, survival, war. Nadal's Babolat Pure Aero isn't a racket. It's ferocity, spin, power, warrior energy. And when we pick up a racket, consciously or subconsciously, we want a piece of that story. We want to feel connected to the identity of the player who uses it. But here's the quiet truth. That desire comes from ego. The ego seeks validation. The ego wants to belong. The ego wants to feel like a real player. And holding a high-status racket brand becomes a shortcut to that feeling. We don't say this out loud. We talk about specifications, string patterns, stiffness ratings, power levels. But beneath the specs lies a softer truth. We want our racket to say something about us. We want it to say we're serious. We want it to say we're skilled. We want it to say we're part of the tennis world. We want it to say we belong. And brand obsession is one of the simplest ways to secure that belonging. Now, let's talk about insecurity. Because insecurity is the invisible engine behind racket brand obsession. When we're unsure of our tennis identity, we reach for external anchors. Equipment becomes the anchor. If we don't fully believe in our game, we look for belief in a racket. If we don't trust ourselves, we trust the brand. If our confidence is shaky, we cling to something solid in our hand. And in those moments, the racket becomes more than graphite. It becomes emotional armor. This is why you sometimes feel more confident walking on court with a brand you admire. It feels like the racket carries part of your self-worth. It becomes a symbol of who you want to be, not just who you are. But ego attachment is tricky, because once your ego attaches to a brand, your identity becomes intertwined with the racket. Suddenly, changing brands feels like changing part of yourself. Losing with a racket feels like the racket betrayed you. Playing badly makes you question your equipment instead of your mindset. And buying a new racket becomes a way to buy a fresh identity. This is why racket shopping feels so emotional. You aren't just choosing a tool, you're choosing a narrative. You're choosing who you want to be on the court. It's the same reason people obsess over car brands or shoe brands. Identity lives in the symbolic meaning of objects. Racket obsession reveals ego because it reveals our craving for approval. We want others to see us as a certain type of player. We want to look professional. We want to look stylish. We want to look athletic. We want to look like we know what we're doing. And racket brands become a convenient, almost subconscious language for signaling that. But the deeper layer is this. Racket brand obsession reveals our fear of being judged. We fear being judged for our level. We fear being judged for our technique. We fear being judged for our choices. We fear being judged for not looking like a real player. And so, the brand we choose becomes our shield. But where does validation come in? Validation shows up the moment someone says, "Nice racket," or, "Oh, you play with that frame," or, "That's what the pros use." And suddenly, you feel elevated. You feel accepted. You feel like you made the right choice. That small moment of external validation reinforces the emotional attachment to the brand and strengthens the ego's dependence on it. It becomes a loop. Brand identity validation, attachment, fear of letting go. This is why many players stay with rackets long after they stop serving their game. Why players cling to outdated frames. Why some obsessively string the racket to mimic their favorite pro. Why they will defend the brand in arguments. Because it's no longer just a racket, it's a piece of their ego. But let's go deeper. Racket brands also allow us to hide from responsibility. If we lose, we can blame the equipment. If we play badly, we can blame the string setup. If something feels off, we can blame the racket model. It becomes a convenient scapegoat that protects the ego from accountability. If the racket is the problem, then we are not. And that illusion is comforting. The irony is that racket brands matter far less to performance than we believe. But they matter immensely to how we feel about ourselves. We don't obsess because of physics. We obsess because of psychology. Now, let's bring this back to something tender and human. We don't attach to racket brands because we're vain. We attach because we all want to belong. We all want to feel confident. We all want to feel like we're part of something larger. Racket brands give us that feeling, just as team jerseys give fans identity, or instruments give musicians identity. It's human to connect emotionally to the tools we use to express ourselves. But understanding the ego attachment helps us loosen its grip. It helps us choose rackets from reality, not insecurity. It helps us see equipment as support, not identity. It helps us trust ourselves more than our brand. And now, here is your CTA. If this episode revealed something about your own relationship with rackets, subscribe to the channel for more deep tennis psychology insights that make you say, "Wow, that's actually me." Share this episode with someone who always talks about rackets. They'll appreciate the deeper story behind their obsession. And in the comments, tell me honestly, what racket brand makes you feel most like yourself and why? Your answer might help another player understand their own ego attachment more clearly. And now for our closing message. You are not your racket. You are not your brand. You are not the logo on the strings or the paint job in your hand. The racket may amplify your confidence, but it does not define your worth. Your identity lives in your heart, not your equipment. And the moment you separate who you are from what you use, you become free. Free to choose, free to play, free to grow. A racket can support your game, but only you can elevate your soul on the court.